Members, at the appointed time, we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has issued no information paper. We have two items on the agenda. That's number 2, enhancements to residential care services scheme in Guangdong, and item 3, the pilot scheme on subsidy for elderly recipients of comprehensive social security assistance to reside in residential care homes in Guangdong. We have up to 12:40 for the two items. These two items are interrelated, so the government recommended a joint discussion. Members may refer to legislative paper CP bracket 11631/2024 bracket 01 and also bracket 03. Members may also refer to paper bracket 02 for background. I now invite Mr. Ho Kai-ming, the Undersecretary for Labor and Welfare, to walk us through the government's papers. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. First, over to the Undersecretary. Thank you, Chairman. Today, we're here to brief members on support measures for seniors to seek elderly care in the mainland. The 2024 policy address proposes plans to enhance and expand the residential care services scheme in Guangdong. Now, starting from November, we have had 11 care homes, and that includes care homes run by mainland bodies, and they are found in Guangdong, Foshan, Zhongshan, Zhaojing, in total 5 mainland cities of the GBA. These care homes provide care for frail seniors in the mainland. This gives our seniors more options. Seniors have concerns about medical services in the mainland, so the government will pilot a scheme. This means the government will bear part of the medical costs for these seniors, subject to a cap at 10,000 RMB for outpatient care and 30,000 yuan per person for inpatient care. This pilot scheme will run for 3 years. We will engage a company with experience in the mainland's medical insurance to undertake the services. Starting from the second half of next year, we will start this pilot. The government will also hire an NGO with experience in mainland services. That NGO will provide support for the families and seniors so that the seniors can adapt to life in the mainland care home. For seniors living in the mainland cities of the GBA, there will be support services for them to take part in the scheme. This service will be rolled out in the first half of next year. Now, apart from this scheme, there are also portable services for seniors residing in Guangdong and Fujian. Now, for those on CSSA, but those who are not frail, these seniors may want to enter a quality elderly care home in Guangdong for better living environment and quality of life. But these seniors may not be able to afford the expenses. That's why the government has plans to apply for funding under the community care scheme. Next year, the government wants to roll out a 3-year pilot scheme for seniors on CSSA to stay in residential care homes in Guangdong. Under this pilot scheme, for each senior, there will be a flat rate of $5,000 per month. Now, for a senior who can look after themselves, when you take together their CSSA payment, they will get $9,400 per month, and that includes $4,400 under the portable CSSA scheme and also the $5,000 under the pilot scheme. This pilot scheme targets relatively healthy seniors who can look after themselves. This scheme will provide 1,000 places, and then we will make adjustments having regard to the situation. The government's plan is to consult the CCF task force and seek funding approval from the Commission of Poverty in the first half of 2025 and roll out this pilot scheme within next year. The government will continue to support seniors who wish to seek elderly care in the mainland. This is to give seniors more options and to foster integration between Guangdong and Hong Kong. We welcome comments from members. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Undersecretary. 8 members are lining up to speak. I will read out their names: Dr. Franking An, Dr. Tik Chi-yun, Ms. Connie Lam, Mr. Chao Siu-chung, Mr. Stanley Li, Mr. Ring Kong, Mr. Bill Tang, Mr. Andrew Lam, Dr. David Lam, 6 minutes per member. Questions and answers inclusive. Dr. Frankie Ngai, please. Thank you, Chairman. Now, on more cities, more options to be covered under the scheme, I have some questions. People want more options. My impression is that the government is being passive. A care home comes to you with an application, and then that care home becomes accessible to seniors. But what more can the HKSAR government do to encourage care homes run by businesses in Hong Kong and the mainland to take part in the scheme? Undersecretary. There are two ways for a care home to be covered by the scheme. First, there are care homes that the government already engages with for services. These care homes can find a mainland partner, and then they can take part in this scheme. The other path is for provincial or municipal level bodies or government agencies in Guangdong. Now, as long as those care homes meet the 4-star requirement, they can take part in the scheme. We have been receiving applications. The response has been positive. At the same time, we also work with mainland cities to see what care homes they can recommend. We also take a proactive part in talking to those cities. Foshan and Guangzhou have come to us with suggestions. For other cities, we reach out to those cities to see what suggestions they have. The response from each city depends on each city because it comes down to the medical expenses involved. For the 9 mainland GBA cities, we have been in talks with each of these cities. Chairman, I have some questions. Now I'm looking at this list of stars-rated senior care organizations. Can the government give us a list? Can we get such a list of the care homes in the mainland? Can the Undersecretary tell us which cities we're in talks with so that we can cover more cities under this residential care services scheme of Guangdong? Now, in Chaozhou and Shantou, these cities are in Guangdong province, but they are not covered by this scheme. Seniors want to access care homes in those cities too. So are we in talks with those cities? So under the Secretary, can you tell us more about those 2 cities? Now, for the 4-star requirement, we need a provincial agency to recommend the care homes to us. We don't have the information at hand. The member can look up the internet, or we can provide the information after the meeting. Now, as for Chaozhou and Shantou, so this means cities in Guangdong but outside the GBA. Now, we have to approach that matter on a case-by-case basis. We know some people in Hong Kong hail from Chaozhou and Shantou. We have talked to the business chambers of Chaozhou and Shantou. Now, some people are still skeptical about care homes in those places. Now, the civil affairs departments from those places can talk to us. Members are also welcome to give us ideas so that we can talk to those parties. We can first tell them about the plan, and then we can see where we can take that from here. The members' point is to get the government to be more proactive, to touch base with Chaozhou and Shantou to see if they are interested in such efforts. Chairman. Now we can talk to the civil affairs authorities of Chaozhou and Shantou. Dr. Teck Chi-yun. Hong Kong seniors can seek elderly care in the mainland. That's more options for our seniors. Legislative members visited mainland care homes. Those places are pleasant. So that means more options. We don't want to force seniors to go to the mainland. We should work on both fronts. More options on the mainland while we also take forward initiatives in Hong Kong. Only a minority of seniors choose the mainland, so I hope the government can make this pledge. My question has to do with quality assurance. We can see a pleasant environment in the mainland. with great staff. But our seniors stay in the mainland's care homes for the long term. They may spend the rest of their lives there. How do we ensure the quality of the care homes in the mainland? We have seniors staying at mainland care homes run not just by Hong Kong businesses, but also mainland bodies. How are those care homes managed? Managing care homes is a complex business. Many things can happen throughout the day. Without a system to manage those care homes, things can go wrong. In Hong Kong, media reports come out pointing to negligence or people dropping the ball, leading to dangerous situations in mainland. But given it's about care homes in the mainland, how do we manage them? Hong Kong has SQS in place. Are similar requirements in place for the mainland? And now, when something does go wrong, how can the public be informed? People here pay for the elderly care in the mainland. How are those incidents informed? How are those notified to the public? Care homes also need to be maintained and repaired from time to time. Hong Kong has a rigorous system in place. Are those systems in place for the mainland? Things may look good for care homes in the mainland today, but quality may decline in the mainland. And then we send those seniors to the mainland, and things don't look good for them. So what do we do? My colleagues, Mr. Chong and Ms. Jenny Yan, can tell us more about this in a moment. But I think the members' comments are based on myths and partial. I just visited the mainland with social workers and my colleague. Now, we're open to views from members. Mainland elderly care homes are highly transparent, and they adopt German technology across the board. We have to respect the systems of each city. We have to learn about the systems. And then we find something that's mutually agreeable. I don't think it's right to say those cities don't have rigorous systems in place. Undersecretary, let's take a focused approach. Yes, we can see a pleasant environment, and seniors are in a good place when they stay in mainland care homes. Hong Kong has high standards in place, but we also have a system to ensure those standards are upheld. The environment looks good in mainland care homes today, but how do we ensure the quality 3 years from now? The government has to play a role in monitoring the system. Chairman, the government sets great store by the quality of this system. This scheme is about giving seniors and their family members more options. On monitoring, the mainland has a gradually improving monitoring system. The mainland monitors their care homes according to their administrative and regulatory systems. This is the job for the mainland government. The HKSL government should not interfere in this process. Now, we also have service agreements in place with the mainland. In that process, the Social Welfare Department's requirements are met. The Social Welfare Department conducts regular visits. And I can invite my colleague, the Assistant Director of Social Welfare, to tell us more. In signing those contracts, we require that the services to be delivered should be on a par with those in Hong Kong. This includes the level of care, the services to be covered. There should be a personal care plan for each senior. We visit the mainland care homes regularly. We visit those seniors and their family members. We survey the situation. When it's a Hong Kong body that runs those care homes, they have to meet our requirements. As for care homes run by mainland bodies, they have to maintain their 4-star rating. Each year, they have to be assessed. If they don't meet the annual requirements, they lose their 4-star rating. But 5-star hotels in the mainland become 3-star hotels over time. How do you make sure a 4-star care home today remains so a year from now? Just then, an official said they rely on the mainland system. We're told we have service agreements. My question is simple. Does Hong Kong play a role in the continuous monitoring of those care homes? We pay for the care. We have to make sure our seniors are properly cared for in the mainland. Continuous monitoring is necessary. Do we have a role? We need to be clear. We have surprise inspections and regular inspections in Hong Kong. We hold meetings in Hong Kong for continuous improvement. Those systems, do we have those for the mainland care homes?
What Dr. Tick said is something that we've been doing all along. We can just abide by the mainland laws and regulations in the Greater Bay Area and the mainland cities. If there is any discrepancy, we try to plug the loophole by setting out relevant provisions in the contract. We conduct surprise and regular visits to monitor the service quality. As I mentioned, we will engage a team to continue to take care of the elderly and monitor the situation. Next, Ms. Lam So-wai. Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad to see the enhancement to the Guangdong scheme. The overall expenditure this year of the Guangdong scheme amount to $33.7 million. For the care home in Zhaoxing, the occupancy rate is just 7%. The Guangdong scheme has been here for some time, and the places for elderly persons in the central waiting list will be kept despite them having been resided in the mainland. I wonder how we will continue to step up promotion and publicity. It is said that the administration will work with the elderly centers on promotion and publicity, but I have a suggestion for the Undersecretary. Will you work with the hospital authority? Because a lot of elderly people suffer from chronic illness and they go for regular consultations. Will the geriatric department of the HA work with the administration to set up booths to promote the scheme so that elderly persons know about the 11 care homes that we have under the scheme? I think that, well, there are different departments in the hospital departments. We have a social care services unit. I think that you should step up publicity and promotion. Also, will you be organizing tours? We can invite able-bodied elderly persons and caregivers to look at the 11 care homes. I think that the administration can consider my suggestions. Second, on the pilot scheme for offering portable cash assistance, while the 10,000 yuan is for outpatient, $30,000 or yuan for inpatient services, I'd like to ask about the disbursement arrangement. In Hong Kong, we offer some services on a accountable basis. How do the elderly person claim the expenses from the administration? And the receipts issued by mainland medical institutions can vary. What is the procedure for reimbursement? My third point. Some elderly persons, after undergoing SLAMO assessment, they're not frail. And what happens if they become MIP after residing in the mainland for some time. What happens to their assets, especially those who are receiving CSSAs? Will there be anyone to manage their assets, and will the Social Welfare Department become their guardians in this case? Undersecretary, thank you. I thank Ms. Lam for her suggestions on promotion and publicity. SCAMO is the most important part because only after being assessed under the SCAMOs will the elder senior citizens be eligible for the Guangdong scheme. The assessors are usually the social workers. We try to enhance their understanding of the Guangdong scheme so that they can give relevant information to their clients who are elderly citizens in Hong Kong. If these social workers are not familiar with the Guangdong scheme, they will not be able to promote such scheme to the senior citizens. We went to Guangdong last week together with them to enhance their understanding. I thank Ms. Lam for her suggestion. We will place the relevant promotional materials at the social workers unit in the hospitals. But the most important thing is to have our senior citizens undergo SCNA MES assessment. I will ask Mr. Zhang to take the other question. Thank you. Let me talk about the effectiveness of the pilot scheme. The scheme was rolled out in 2014. It's been 10 years. The occupancy rate may not be high, and we've been looking into the reason why that is. It could be because of the lack of options. There are only 2 care homes in 2 cities in the mainland. Some senior citizens are worried about the medical service on the mainland. The success of a policy hinges on a lot of different factors. This scheme is a great scheme. We're offering more options to our seniors. A lot of seniors want to retire in the mainland, and they want to be closer to the motherland. So in the last few policy address, there's been enhancement measures to the scheme. We have increased the number of care homes. Now we have 11 care homes in 5 different cities, and we are offering cash assistance to the senior citizens. In 2014 was very different from 2024. In 2019, under the outlined development plan for the Greater Bay Area, we have fostered closer collaboration with the Greater Bay Area. And in 2019, the mainland rolled out a scheme to grant residence permit to to Hong Kong citizens who have resided in the mainland for quite some time. By getting the residence permit, they enjoy the local basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents. Another thing that has been different since 2014 is the closer integration between Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. The transport arrangement has been more convenient. Also, there's been closer people-to-people exchanges. So since the 2014 policy address, when the scheme was rolled out, we received positive feedback. We received over 60 applications with 300 telephone inquiries. If we compare that to 2022 October, that is approximately 2 years ago, the occupancy number is 124. Today, we're talking about 280 plus. That's 2 times the figure in 2022. So we think that we're heading towards a great direction. With expansion and improvement to the scheme, we believe that more and more Hong Kong seniors would choose to retire in the mainland. We will continue to step up publicity and promotion. After the members have become more familiar with the scheme, please promote the scheme to the seniors in Hong Kong. Now, I will ask the Assistant Director to elaborate more on the scheme. Thank you. Please be very brief. Let me first talk about publicity and promotion. We will consider Ms. Lam's suggestions as under by the Undersecretary in November 2024. We broadcasted on television some promotional videos, and the 11 care homes have their own promotional materials placed in various places. For district elderly community centers, they organize tours to the mainland care homes with elderly citizens. For those who are queuing for these care homes under Guangdong scheme, the social workers will tell them about the relevant information, and we have organized 2 exchange sessions that are participated by over 1,000 social workers. So we see that our promotional efforts are very effective. Can we ask Mr. Zhang to also talk about the payment disbursement arrangement? Let me spend some time to talk about the entire disbursement arrangement. As I mentioned, for Hong Kong residents who have resided in the mainland for half a year or more with a residence permit issued by the local public securities authorities, they can join the local basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents. This is a comprehensive medical insurance offered to the mainland residents. Hong Kong citizens living in the mainland will only have to bear 40% of the medical costs, while the local government bear the rest of the cost. The ratio in different cities are different. Now I'm talking about the average percentage. So this basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents is a national policy. After Hong Kong residents have joined the basic medical insurance, when they seek medical services in the mainland, they fall under the relevant framework. They have to go to designated medical institutions and pharmacies to seek medical consultation and purchase drugs. Apart from that, they have to purchase drug under the relevant formulary, medical consumables, and so on. So what is the percentage of reimbursement? For outpatient services and inpatient services, there are different ceilings. A country pay 50 to 70% of the cost, while residents only have to pay the rest. So there is a co-payment mechanism in place. After receiving medical services and purchasing drugs, the country will settle the payment for a certain percentage. Now, Hong Kong SAR government is stepping in. If the Hong Kong citizens submit the relevant receipts to Hong Kong, then we will pay the part that Hong Kong citizens are responsible to. For outpatient services, the ceiling is 10,000 yuan. For inpatient services, the ceiling is 30,000 yuan. As the Secretary said previously, this is a very innovative approach. This is a kind of policy innovation. 10,000 yuan plus 3,000 yuan, we have 4,000 yuan altogether. We're innovative in the sense that we are covering the cost of medical services and drugs for the Hong Kong residents living in the mainland. We alleviate the burden of Hong Kong residents living in the mainland. We try to match our cash assistance with that in the mainland, that is the basic medical insurance for urban and rural residents, so that Hong Kong residents retiring in the mainland enjoy more protection. Although the co-payment system is not actually a medical insurance, but it is, in a sense, a form of medical insurance for Hong Kong residents retiring in the mainland, because Hong Kong residents living in the mainland enjoy more coverage in terms of medical insurance. So they do not only enjoy medical protection by mainland governments in the mainland, they also enjoy reimbursement for their medical services and drugs by Hong Kong government. We're essentially offering comprehensive support.
Now, you have overrun by a lot, but I think that point is of interest to many members. We move on to Mr. Chao Siu-chung. I will keep asking questions so that there will be more time for the officials to explain the concept. I welcome the government's efforts to roll out substantive measures. These enhancements will hopefully attract more of our seniors to seek elderly care services in the mainland. Now, I have a question about the 6-month trial period. That's a great measure. If the seniors don't like the arrangement, they can come back to Hong Kong. They get to keep their place in the queue. That's great. My question for the government is, can we lengthen the trial period for individual cases? Some people may have to spend more than a dozen months on the waiting list, but they may not be able to afford mainland as the elderly care. So can we lengthen the trial period so that the senior can stay in that mainland care home while waiting for elderly care in Hong Kong? So can we cover the entire waiting period? That's something for the government to consider. Now, I turn to the mainland's medical insurance. How did the government arrive at the cap 10,000 yuan per person outpatient care, 30,000 yuan per person for inpatient care? Was there any research? We were told about the two-tier insurance. Tier 2 covers the co-payment amount. But my question is, are seniors expected to pay out of their own pocket up front and then they come back for reimbursement through the claim process? Or can seniors simply turn up at the hospital and the company hired by the government can settle the remainder of the fees? If the latter is the case, then that's great. But if the seniors have to pay up front and then they file the claim, that will be a struggle for seniors, especially for seniors who need a high degree of care. So I would like some more details on this point. Now I turn to publicity. The uptake has been very low. More than 16,000 seniors on the waiting list, but the uptake of this scheme is less than 2%. A worker at my office told me they have a family member on the waiting list. No one from the SWD has told that person about the scheme. Our publicity has fallen short. Can we employ different ways? Can we work through community organizations to tell people about the scheme? So those are my questions for the first paper. Now I turn to my questions for the second or the third item. Now for the pilot scheme for seniors on CSSA. Once the seniors get the $5,000 subsidy, they have to continuously stay in the mainland. Do we have some more details on that? That pilot scheme is for able-bodied seniors. The senior may be staying, say, in the residential care home in Zhongshan. Is that senior expected to stay 365 days throughout the year? Can this senior travel out of town for some part of the year? So will the senior be expected to stay in that care home throughout the year? Undersecretary, thank you. On the trial period, this is a point of interest to the general public. The waiting list for government-procured services, people have to wait for 19 months. For bought place homes, 3 to 4 months. For the Guangdong scheme, or rather residential care services scheme for Guangdong, people can move in right away. We don't think that will happen because people will just wait for 3 to 4 months for the bought place scheme. They move to Guangdong for 3 to 4 months and then they come back. This scheme is for seniors staying in the mainland for the long term. This is for frail seniors. We'll give those seniors 6 months to try and see if it works out. So we're talking about no waiting time for this scheme, 3 to 4 months for bought place scheme. So there shouldn't be a gap there. Now for the mainland, there's a co-payment model. We ask seniors to pay upfront. That's because seniors can pick other drugs outside the drug formulary under the national medical insurance. That's not covered by their medical insurance. Seniors can choose the drugs. But we will see if some other drugs can be covered. Now, Mr. Chong can tell us more in a moment. But for now, we expect seniors to pay upfront out of pocket, and then they claim reimbursement for the expenses. On the third question, Mr. Chong can tell us more. On publicity. Now, we need the assessment first. So actually that family member, the legislative member mentioned can go for the scheme now. Now we will think about ways to step up publicity for this more than 10,000 seniors on the waiting list. Mr. Chong. Mr. Chow asked about how we arrived at the cap 10,000 yuan and 30,000 yuan. So we look at the Hong Kong scheme, the cost for our local residential care services scheme, and then we look at the cost in the mainland. We've arrived at the difference, and then we settled on the 40,000 yuan as the amount. That's why I call this a groundbreaking arrangement. So the claim process goes like this. Under the mainland's medical insurance for urban and rural residents, the patient settles the bill upon discharge. This is the national medical insurance scheme. The SCL government cannot get involved at the settlement process. That's why we will hire a body with experience to help seniors with the work. When the senior claims the fees under the cap 10,000 or 30,000 yuan, those expenses have to be covered by the national medical insurance. So they have to stay within the scope of the national medical insurance. And only then can the senior get the reimbursement. Now, as for the $5,000 subsidy, on whether the senior is expected to stay in that care home throughout the year, Ms. Anissa Ma can tell us more about that. Now, for seniors on CSSA staying in a mainland care home, that senior has to stay in the care home and pay the fees. Now, for all PCSSA schemes, the same principle applies for other CSSA recipients. The recipient can leave the place of residence for up to 180 days. So that senior can be out of Guangdong for up to 180 days and still qualify for the subsidy. So the question about 10,000 and 30,000 yuan. So we are covering the difference between the cost of elderly care in the mainland and Hong Kong. So there has been no separate assessment of the co-payment part for seniors. Chairman, you're right. We settle on this amount based on the difference between subsidized care home in the mainland and that in Hong Kong. We will then gather data on the claimed amounts under this scheme. Once this scheme concludes, we will look at ways to enhance the scheme and how we can proceed in the future. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the Labor and Welfare Bureau. On the 30th of November last year, I moved a member's motion in cross-boundary elderly care. Our ideas have been adopted by the government. We heard about cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen being covered by the scheme. There are 11 care homes. Do we know if there are care homes that have got their applications in? What are some struggles the care homes have had? Are there rejected applications? Medical support matters in elderly care. The government has offered great support. The question is, as we pick care homes, have we picked care homes close to mainland hospitals? It's best to have care homes where you also have a hospital nearby. That way, you can make life easier for seniors. My third question is for the second scheme, the pilot scheme for seniors on CSSA. It's $5,000 plus $4,400 under the PCSSA scheme. My question is, how can seniors access the cash while they stay in the mainland? Can we talk to the mainland about how to offer greater ease to these seniors? Otherwise, those seniors, they want to come back to Hong Kong, they pick up the cash and then they return to the mainland. And there may be safety issues when they have so much cash with them. So it would be great if we can look after this part too. I get it, we follow the mainland's regulations and laws in the monitoring of mainland care homes. The Undersecretary told us about improving laws, the laws gradually improving in the mainland. But on measuring the success of regulation of care homes in the mainland, our government, the HKSL government, should also play a role. Can we get the mainland care homes to submit information to the HKSAR government so that we get a better picture of how Hong Kong seniors are doing in the mainland care homes? Of course, we should not interfere with the mainland's laws and regulations, but can we get those care homes to go that extra mile to be more transparent and let us know more about how those seniors are doing? That way, when we ask the government how those 11 care homes are doing, the government will be in a better position to tell us more.
Undersecretary, there are some care homes that have their application rejected because there are certain requirements for care homes to apply for a scheme. Some of them are not rated under the list of star-rated senior care organizations. Some of them have not been operated for 2 years. As for the cash assistance issue, I will ask Mr. Chong to supplement. For bank remittance arrangement, we have smoothened things out with the financial institutions in the mainland. As for the monitoring of care homes, we will work together with the mainland authorities, and we will also send colleagues from the SWD and the NGO to conduct visits to the care homes to learn about the senior citizens' life in the mainland. Now I will ask Mr. John to elaborate. Thank you, Chairman. Let me first talk about the disbursement arrangement for the portable CSSA scheme. The government will deposit the CSSA amount into the designated bank account of the senior citizens. They can put in place standing instructions with their online banking. Things are more convenient these days because we have online banking. In this year's policy address, we roll out a measure to further facilitate the mainland citizens receiving payment from SWD. The SWD is working with the Hong Kong MA on an arrangement where we can deposit CSSA payment directly into the mainland bank account of the Hong Kong residents retiring on the mainland. That included 4,400 cash assistance and the $5,000 subsidy under the pilot scheme. Hopefully, we'll be able to finalize the arrangement as soon as possible so that the $5,000 subsidy and 4,400 as cash assistance under CSSA scheme can be disbursed more quickly. All along, we've received different applications from care homes operated by Hong Kong bodies and mainland bodies. We have stringent assessment criteria to look at these applications. One of the criteria is their care and medical integration. I will ask Assistant Director to elaborate. Thank you. Whenever we receive an application from care homes operated by local NGOs and private organizations, we look at their documents and we look at their environment, we look at their staff, proposal. For unsuccessful applications, usually it's because their service is not up to par. We also ask them to be in operation for at least half a year. Some of them don't meet these requirements. Thank you. Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you, Chairman. On the enhancement to the residential care services scheme in the Guangdong, I support it. For Hong Kong residents who need or want to retire in the mainland, now we are offering them with more choices. I visited some care homes in Foshan. I see that they are very advanced. Their environment is nice. I have a few questions. In paragraph 9 of the paper, it is said that there is a sharing of medical expenses. Will the administration engage experienced agent to disperse payment? While our government share the part of the medical expenses that elderly participants of the scheme have to incur. For companies with experience in dispersing medical expenses, if you want to engage them, how will you monitor them and how will you assess their eligibility? How do we make sure that there is monitoring in the disbursement of payment? After Hong Kong residents have claimed reimbursement from the company, how soon will they be able to receive the payment? Will the procedures be very complicated? Now, on National Basic Medical Insurance Policy, our residents are not familiar with the arrangement. What is not covered under the relevant medical insurance policy? Will you inform our elderly citizens of that? In another set of paper prepared by the Secretariat, in paragraph 9, it is said that LegCo members expressed concern about the requirement that prevented individuals with parents living in the mainland from claiming the dependent parent allowance in Hong Kong. It is said that the administration will review the issue. How have you followed up on the issue? Is there any progress? My last point on legal support. With more care homes under the scheme, that's great, but if there is cross-boundary medical disputes and legal issues, do we have any legal advisory services to assist these elderly citizens residing on the mainland or to their family members? Will the government provide legal support to them so that they know what their rights and responsibilities are when there is disputes? How are we going to help them? Undersecretary, thank you. On the issue with the insurance company, I will ask Mr. John to talk about that. As to what is and what is not covered under the medical insurance, some drugs are covered under the drug formulary. For drugs that are not covered in the formulary, they have to bear the cost. The same goes for the medical insurance policy on the mainland. We cover drugs and medication in the drug formulary. The arrangement is the same. We are still working things out with the Inland Revenue Department on the parent or dependent parent allowance. As long as you have proof that you are supporting your parent, you can get the tax concessions and deductions. The government has engaged a law firm to provide advisory services. I think that Hong Kong residents residing on the mainland can first ask the relevant NGOs first if they have any questions. If they want to seek further inquiries and advice, they can seek such services from our service provider. Assistant Director, thank you. For the 10,000 and 30,000 yuan assistance, Well, that's the assistance that we offer under a pilot scheme, and we are still working with our mainland counterparts on the framework. We will share with you more details in the future. We engage a company that is experienced, and we will sign an agreement with them. They must submit relevant report and documents as proof to us. When we have more details, we will share with the members. As for other forms of services, we have an organization that is responsible for it, and the organization will step in to provide services in early 2025. Next, Mr. Tang Kapil. Thank you, Chairman. We often visit care homes in Guangdong province. For frail elderly, it's not easy for them to retire on the mainland. And for family members of frail elder, they want to visit them very often, and it's difficult for them to do so if they're retiring on the mainland. I'm more concerned about the pilot scheme for elderly CSSA recipients to reside in residential care homes in Guangdong. What is the difference between residing in Hong Kong and the mainland? If you want to go for subsidized residential care homes, you have to go through the SCNA MES. What happens to those who have not been assessed under SCNA MES? Are we targeting this group of elderly person with medium impairment for this pilot scheme? Can you elaborate on that? Under Secretary, our pilot scheme target all CSSA recipients that have not been assessed under the standardized care needs assessment mechanism. They could be living in public rental housing or tenement buildings with no income. There are some of them who are already residing in care homes. We will operate the scheme on a pilot basis first, and then we will review it afterwards. Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Tang, for the question. Let me talk about the difference between the pilot scheme for CSSA recipients to reside in the residential care homes in Guangdong and the Guangdong scheme. For this pilot scheme, we help elderly CSSA recipients to enhance the quality of living. So what type of CSSA recipients are we targeting? We're talking about non-frail elderly for this pilot scheme that can care for themselves. We try to set a clear target. Now we have 260,000 CSSA recipients, some 120,000 are elderly. 110,000 of them are singleton and doubleton elderly. Among them, there are 56,000 of them that are able-bodied or with 50% impairment. Some 55,600 of them are residing in private care homes. Their living conditions may not be ideal. That's why we want to help them by giving them more options. We give them a choice to reside in the 11 care homes in Guangdong, and we will subsidize them with $5,000. For CSSA recipients residing on the mainland, they can only receive a cash assistance of $4,400. That may not be enough for them to reside in care homes. For the 11 care homes under that scheme, they offer great services. That's why we roll out this scheme. How did we come up with the $5,000 subsidy under the pilot scheme? For Hong Kong residents residing in private care homes, they receive on average $5,000. That's why we also offer a subsidy of $5,000 under the pilot scheme.
I know the official is giving us more details, but I try not to overrun by too much. I get the idea. I just have a few specific questions. First, the situation where I'm on CSSA, I'm in a very low value property, but then I move to a elderly care home. Do I have to sell my property if I have a large amount of cash by selling the property? I don't qualify for CSSA anymore. The FTU service centers have received cases involving seniors in their 70s, 80s. They get help from their relatives. They stay in Guangdong province. They haven't applied for the CSSA. If they hear of this scheme, how can they apply for the scheme? Is there a way for them to take part in this scheme? The cost of living will rise in the mainland at some point. Does the money here ensure seniors can get room and board in mainland care homes? Now, the price range usually has to do with care homes offering room and board. That's roughly the price range for able-bodied seniors. Those care homes are quality care homes. On the first two questions, those two are rather complex questions. Mr. Chong can take those questions. Can you be brief? Now, on self-occupied properties. Self-occupied properties are disregarded for CSSA purposes. But when you have other properties, not for self-occupation, they are included in the means test. Now, jointly owned properties are a different story. If a property is not self-occupied and not jointly owned, that will affect your CSSA eligibility. If you don't qualify for CSSA, you don't qualify for this scheme. Now, for seniors, Hong Kong seniors in the mainland, how do they apply for this scheme? They will have to come back to Hong Kong. They have to meet the CSSA scheme for seniors. I noticed inconsistency. Say I'm in an old tenement building. I take part in this scheme. That property becomes non-self-occupied property. So there is inconsistency here. On Saturday, a case came to my attention. Someone in Dongguan in the 60s and 70s, they rely on their relatives for support, and they want to take part in this scheme. Do they have to come back to Hong Kong, stay for a year to qualify for the scheme? I'm not asking for a solution right away, but I'm trying to find a solution for this kind of cases. I think that case has to do with the policy at large. So can the Undersecretary maybe look into the details before giving us an answer? You may not be able to give an answer off the top of your head because other policy areas are involved. Mr. Andrew Lam. Now, I'm with the body that takes part in this care home scheme in Guangdong. I have a broad policy question. I'm all for more options. Any option that is a real option. The question is, can people not change their mind after making that choice? Sure, let's have a trial. But can a senior truly adapt to a place in 6 months' time? People of all age groups. may have different things in mind. Seniors move to a mainland care home and then they want to come back. Mr. Bill Tang raised a great question. When it's a choice, there should be mobility between the mainland and Hong Kong. So what do we do? Now, we now have 11 care homes under this scheme. A real option means care homes that meet certain requirements should be able to apply for the scheme. So should we allow all care homes that meet the requirements to take part in the scheme instead of sticking to the current approach? So in that case, seniors get more choices. So those are my questions. Now I can reassure Mr. Lam we are offering real choices. Within 6 months' time, a senior can change their mind and come back and keep their place in the queue. If a senior stays in the mainland for more than 6 months, the senior still gets priority for the bought place scheme. They may no longer have the place for subsidized care homes, but there are other options in Hong Kong for those changing their mind after 6 months. Now, this scheme here, the residential care services scheme in Guangdong works like a voucher. Of course, we want to see more care homes offering more places. If we end up with a shortage of places, that means the scheme is very popular. That's something we welcome. We want more care homes to offer more choices. We don't think there will be a shortage of places. Dr. David Lam. I have a question. There's a pilot scheme for seniors on CSSA to stay in Guangdong residential care homes. So for seniors going for that scheme, do they still get the 10,000 yuan for outpatient care and 30,000 yuan for inpatient care? Now I turn to the scheme for frail seniors. As at 2024, 284 seniors had signed up for the scheme. There were 15,000 subsidized care homes, 1,500 places at nursing homes. So 280 is a very small number. Are there plans to increase this number? Do care homes in Guangdong make a distinction between care and detention homes and nursing homes? When our seniors go to mainland care homes, which kind of care homes do they stay at? We heard about the classification and accreditation of Senior Care Organization of China, and only 4-star care homes qualify for the scheme. When there's a change in the rating, what do we do about the seniors? Do we help those seniors transfer to a qualifying institution? Or do we help them come back to Hong Kong? So those are my questions. Thank you. Those are technical questions. Now, we're talking about seniors going to care and detention homes. We do have nursing homes. This scheme is for seniors who meet the requirements under the standardized assessment. but seniors who don't need nursing home yet. There are 15,000 places at care and detention homes, but the demand will be growing. We may not be able to build so many care homes. It's quite an achievement for us to have 1,000 places. One year we had 18 places. That was record-breaking. We provided 1,800 places. The population is aging. We have to cope with that. So now we have this scheme. When things change in the mainland scheme or a Hong Kong senior struggles to adapt, those seniors can fall back on Hong Kong's care homes. There are care homes under the bought place scheme in Hong Kong. So seniors don't have to worry about that. Mr. Chong, it's about the scheme for seniors on CSSA, whether they get the 10,000 yuan and 30,000 yuan. Those funding or those subsidies only apply to frail seniors. The pilot scheme for seniors on CSSA, on the other hand, target healthier seniors. Now, on target, how many seniors we want to take part in the scheme, the more the better. We want to expand and enhance our schemes so that more people get involved in the scheme and the scheme becomes more popular. So that's the idea. Thank you. Mr. Chen Pui-Leung. Now, under the Residential Care Services Scheme in Guangdong, as at the end of October this year, only 284 seniors were staying at those care homes. What was the uptake before this increase in the number of care homes? So with more care homes covered under the scheme, how many extra places would there be? So how do we increase the uptake in the future? More eligible care homes will set aside places for this scheme. Do we have to pay to keep those places for those care homes to set aside places for Hong Kong seniors? If we're not paying that fee, say if there's a surge in demand, will we see a shortage of places at those care homes? Now, we want to encourage Hong Kong seniors to seek elderly care in the mainland for those with the means and those with the need. Now, we talked about the dependent parent allowance that was covered by the Undersecretary, and the seniors may have to surrender their PRH flat, and those factors are in the mind of seniors. Now, I also have a question about the disability allowance. Someone came to me with a question. They are not in the Guangdong scheme or Fujian scheme. They are getting elderly care in the mainland. Now, they no longer get the disability allowance because Hong Kong says they have to come back to Hong Kong and stay here for 60 days before getting the DA again. But that person already has disabilities. Can we relax the rules and be more considerate in our approach for seniors aging in the mainland?
Undersecretary, thank you, Mr. Chan, for the question. Previously, there were some 200 people residing in care homes operated by NGOs. Some of them have to come back for medical services. And now we have some 284 elderly persons residing on the mainland under the scheme as at October 2024. In a year time, we have seen 84 more elderly residing on the mainland under the scheme. 1,300 places are offered in the 11 care homes. So there's still places. Our procurement mechanism is different from the bought place scheme. For bought place scheme, the care homes have to set aside places for us. But for the Guangdong scheme, we only pay, or the elderly persons only pay as when they reside in those care homes. When the places of the care homes are exhausted, we will have to see how we ask them to set aside places for our residents. What about the disability allowance issue? Thank you. It's true that the elderly person have to seek assessment from the medical doctors for eligibility for disability allowance. We don't plan to procure medical services relating to disability on the mainland. If elderly persons have monetary needs or financial needs, we encourage them to apply for the subsidy under the pilot scheme for CSSA recipients in Guangdong, $5,000, and the old age living allowance in the mainland for $1,700. Thank you. Next, Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Chairman. We all recognize the efforts of LWB in offering better retirement conditions for our seniors. The Undersecretary said that they are optimistic about the scheme. Earlier this year, we only have 200 persons under the scheme. Now we have 284 elderly persons under the scheme. But having spent so much resources onto it, we want to see greater effect. In 10 years' time, 1/3 of our population will be elderly. Do we know what our seniors are worried about? In the paper, it is said that they receive 200 to 300 telephone inquiries. But do we have any analysis on, for example, what elderly is most concerned about? If I were an elderly person, I would be discouraged by joining the scheme after listening to the administration's reply. How do we streamline the procedures so that we can encourage our senior residents to know more about the scheme? Some of our questions have not been addressed. I know that there is a 6-month trial period. Within these 6 months, our seniors may not be able to adapt to the lives on the mainland. What kind of support can we offer these seniors if they cannot adapt to the lives of the mainland? Thank you. Undersecretary. Thank you, Ms. Chan, for the question. Earlier this year, we only had 200 elderly persons under the scheme, but we had only 2 care homes. And in November, we have 11 care homes. So we are having more places towards the end of the year. The reason why we're optimistic is because we see the trend. There are still some applications under process. Second, on the 6-month trial period, Ms. Chen asked if 6 months is enough. We don't want our elderly persons to be living here and there in different care homes on the mainland and in Hong Kong. We keep the places on the waiting list for senior citizens if they cannot adapt to the lives on the mainland. But if the trial period is too long, then it will affect the waiting time for other elderly people on the waiting list. We'll see if we can further adjust the trial period. As for the worries of the seniors, we all know that they're worried about their medical services, they're worried about the residences, commute, and what they eat. For senior citizens residing on the mainland, they may be a bit far away from their family members. We'll see how we can tackle the issue. Relocating to another city is a complicated matter. We try our best to streamline all the procedures. It's true that the elderly residing on the mainland are faced with changes, but we try to offer a package to smoothen things out for elderly people. After the elderly persons have made telephone inquiries, do you have any analysis on the types of inquiries and whether after making these inquiries have any senior citizens choose to reside on the mainland under your scheme? How many return to Hong Kong within the 6-month trial? If you have relevant figures in the future, please let us know. The Assistant Director has something to say. Thank you. This is a great suggestion. We will record the figures down. Prior to, well, in November, we have included 6 more care homes, and since then, we have received more inquiries. Most of them ask about the application procedures and what options they have. Some of them are worried about medical services offered on the mainland. We have offered explanation to them. Some 100 to 200 residents have been living on the mainland. We think that the 6-month trial period is enough. Most of the seniors come back to Hong Kong because they suffer from serious illnesses and their family members want to see them towards the end of their lives. When we have more participants under the scheme, we can share with you more details. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Thank you, Chairman. I have a simple question. We're all concerned about this pilot scheme for elderly CSSA recipients to reside in residential care homes in Guangdong, and we also are concerned about the service quality of care homes. There are care homes operated by Hong Kong bodies and mainland bodies. Let me focus on those operated by local operators. You said that if there is any issue with the care homes operated by local operators, they will be held liable by SWD. They will be subject to warning letter. This review mechanism has been in the talk for a few months. I know that perhaps criminal liability will be involved. Some care homes will be fined if they don't meet certain requirements. Now, in terms of criminal liability, if a Hong Kong operator open a care homes on the mainland, and if the case home manager they hire on the mainland violate the regulations, what happens? If we are to fine the care homes, are we fining the local Hong Kong operators, or the mainland shareholders? Under Secretary. There are 2 NGOs operating care homes on the mainland. But they are actually collaborating and partnering with mainland organizations. That's what we call joint venture, right? Yes. These care homes are registered on the mainland. So if there's anything wrong with these care homes, they will be held liable under the relevant regulations related to civil affairs. Understood. But you said earlier that Hong Kong operators are subject to liability and they are under the purview of SWD. How do you explain that? How will they be held liable? I will ask the assistant director to supplement. We're talking about care homes that we procure services from. Say if there is a joint venture between Hong Kong company and a mainland company, you said that you will conduct site visits, and if there is any issue, you will hold them liable. Are you holding the Hong Kong organization liable or the mainland company liable? We target the Hong Kong operator. How will you hold them liable? Because they are in the form of a joint venture, and the care homes is regulated by mainland regulations. Well, it depends on what they've done. We look at the records and we look at the documents. If there is any falsification of instruments and if they don't meet our standards, we will end our partnership with them. And if criminal elements is involved, we refer the case to the police. Well, there are different criteria that local residents or local care homes have to meet. And if they don't meet those requirements, they are subject to fine or penalty. Now, if a Hong Kong operator is working with a mainland company, I wonder how you hold them liable. Because the Hong Kong operator can blame the mainland company under the same joint venture instead. You said that the care homes are subject to mainland regulations. Does that mean that they don't have to follow Hong Kong regulations at all? Mr. Tan, if the Hong Kong operator procures services from the mainland company, and if there is any violation of laws and regulations, we will hold the A company, that is the Hong Kong company, responsible. If the B company, that is the mainland company, violates the regulations, then they will be held liable under the mainland regulations. We look at what the issues are with the joint venture. So you will only hold the Hong Kong company under the JV liable. Is that right? You will hold A company liable under the Hong Kong regulations and law. This is what you can do under such a form of a partnership. Of course, we will work closely with the mainland authorities together with the Department of Civil Affairs of Guangdong Province. We've signed a letter of intent. If there is any violations, we will work together.
Ms. Lilian Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. My question is similar to those raised by Mr. Michael Tin. I have a worry. You have mainland care homes. For whatever reason, these care homes stop running. For us, we procure services from Hong Kong care homes, and then the Hong Kong care homes work with mainland care homes. In that case, Company A, the one in Hong Kong, is in breach of contract. So we hold Company A, the Hong Kong care home, for breach of contract. My concern is, say for whatever reason, the care homes can no longer keep going. What plans do we have for seniors already staying in the mainland care homes? The Undersecretary told us about working with the mainland, about monitoring the mainland care homes. So will there be regular monitoring, say annual exercises? When the government in Hong Kong sees problems, I'm sure you will work with the mainland to sort out problems. But here's my worry. The care homes are run on a self-financing basis. They are businesses. They are not publicly run. When these care homes run into financial troubles, do we keep an eye? How do we make sure those care homes are financially sustainable so that we can ensure service quality? When those care homes do run into financial problems, does the SAR government have any ideas about what to do in collaboration with the mainland about how we should handle the situation? Can those seniors to be affected come back to Hong Kong? Undersecretary. Now, care homes have closed down in Hong Kong. The SWD came across such cases. We put the well-being of seniors first. When a care home closes down, again, as we said, this scheme is like a voucher. We're not paying extra. We pay only for services provided. So when one care home closes down in the mainland, seniors can go to a different care home in the same city in Guangdong province. When seniors decide to come back to Hong Kong, we can offer a place under the bought place scheme. So this is the same principle that applies when a senior decides mainland care homes are not for them. On the finances of care homes, we require the submission of certain information when a care home applies for inclusion in this scheme. We look at the services a care home can provide. Let's see if my colleague has anything to add. But the point is to ensure quality service for seniors. Anything to add? The same principle applies for all service operators. When a Hong Kong operator enters into a service agreement, we look at that operator as a whole. We look at the structure, the finances. The operator has to meet the service requirements. There's a contract governing the work. The licensing will be subject to mainland laws. Now, for mainland care homes, whether it's a joint venture or not, a care home may not be publicly run. It can be privately run with public involvement. So we remain in touch with the Civil Affairs Department of Guangdong. Chairman, I'm looking for more clarity. Say you have a care home with a decline in their service quality. Do we disqualify those care homes? Things can change. What do you do about that? If a senior cannot adapt to mainland care homes, they can come back. Now, if a care home in the mainland cannot remain in business because of force majeure, and then seniors are affected because by then they will have stayed there for years, can those seniors still come back? I'm talking about seniors who are way past their trial periods. I think I've given an answer on that. Within 6 months, seniors can come back to Hong Kong. They can keep their queue their place in the queue for subsidized care homes. Now, after 6 months, whether it's because the senior cannot adapt or because that mainland care home closes down, those seniors will get a place in the queue for the bought place scheme, so the member can rest assured on that. Now it's my turn. Sorry, Ms. Kwok. What if there's a decline in service quality? What do you do? It depends on the circumstances. If this care home no longer qualifies, this care home will be excluded from our list because the scheme works like a care home voucher. The money follows the user. Sorry, Chairman. I was asking when this happens, so will the seniors be moved away? Say a care home closes down. Does the same principle apply? So the seniors get moved away? It depends. It's up to the seniors. If the seniors want subsidized care homes, they will have to look at other schemes under the GDLCS scheme, or they can access the care homes under the bought place scheme in Hong Kong. So now, speaking for the first round, I now have some questions for the government. I know the government has put in great effort and we have made good progress. Members have so many questions because this scheme is new. I hope the government can explain the scheme with care. If seniors get a poor experience at the first stage or you do a poor job in explaining the scheme, then that may lead to less than ideal outcomes. I have an idea. We have a trial scheme. This is part of your regular scheme. Now, but then in the early stage of the scheme, say in the first 3 years, can we make it easy for seniors to sign up and change their mind? At the trial scheme, we want to encourage participation. It's like an early bird offer. You offer people greater ease in the early days. Once you get past the pilot scheme, you enforce the rules strictly. Because we need enough data. People wonder whether the 10,000 yuan and 30,000 yuan caps are enough. People, that is members here, simply wonder whether the government will cover all the expenses that go above the limit. There are many possible scenarios. We cannot exhaust all the scenarios. I'm simply giving the government a suggestion. Can we be more lenient in the 3-year pilot? Can we take a thoughtful approach? We help our seniors sort out all the problems. If we can do that, then social welfare organizations and other stakeholders can encourage seniors to give a try because we make life easier for seniors in the first 3 years. And then after the first 3 years, you enforce the rules strictly. That would be more productive. We covered the national medical insurance. We have little notion how those schemes work, not just for seniors, even for us, as we are feeling our way forward. We want to take such an approach where we give seniors this option. We allow more places under the scheme. Just like with sports facilities, we are testing things out. That's just my idea. Once we get more data, we will be in a better position to spot the problems. Many users have told me about problems. I struggle to explain some problems. I told them I would tell the government about the problems. We asked questions about whether seniors can change their minds. So maybe the government can consider taking a more lenient approach in the first 3 years. Now, after the 3-year trial period, the 3-year pilot, we strictly enforce the rules. So in the first 3 years, we gather the data. We iron out problems. And then, moving forward, we will see greater success. We're not trying to drive seniors to the mainland. It's just that we cannot cope with all the demand in Hong Kong alone. We're grateful to Guangdong for their help, because we're using the mainland's resources. That's my idea. So I wonder if you have a response. If not, you can take some time to think about this before giving me a response. We will think about that. Thank you. We'll now come to the second round. 3 members will be speaking: Ms. Connie Lam, Ms. Doreen Kong, Mr. Chao Siu-chung. 3 minutes each member. Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you. Now, when a senior applies for the GDRCS scheme, and this senior is in a lucid state, but then over time, during the senior state, this senior becomes a mentally incapacitated person. The senior has assets and property. What do we do about the property, especially for seniors on CSSA? Do we follow Hong Kong's approach? Or can the senior find a guardian in the mainland to help them take care of their property? That's something I want to find out about. So this is about mainland laws and regulations. Ms. Anissa Ma can tell us more in a moment. Within Hong Kong, we follow Hong Kong's laws. When a senior goes back to the mainland and something goes wrong, the same principle applies. So the local laws prevail. You may not be in a position to tell us more about the mainland laws. If you can answer the question, let us know. But if you cannot at the moment, maybe you can find out more about the approach to guardianship in the mainland. You can give us a written reply in due course. Now for MIPs, we have the mental health ordinance. We follow that ordinance. This will require a doctor's assessment. We stick to Hong Kong's approach when it's in Hong Kong. As for the mainland, it depends on the mainland's laws and regulations. So we will have to look into this. So simply put, can we invite the government to note Ms. Connie Lam's question and look at what we do under the mainland's laws and regulations? This is more than just about assessment. The government will need more time to assess what's to be done. I get your point, Chairman. For seniors on CSSA, the money goes to the senior's bank account, but then the senior struggles to manage their own finances, and they have to find someone else. So does the senior have to find someone in Hong Kong or in the mainland? This scenario may well come up. So I look forward to a written response from the government. So for the government, any response at the moment, we will provide a written response. So a written response will do. I think they have to find someone in the mainland, but let's wait for the written response.
Ms. Doreen Kong, thank you, Chairman. Some members ask how we make sure that Hong Kong seniors residing on the mainland can maintain their close relationship with their family members. The administration should perhaps think about how we can cultivate or develop a social support network in the mainland with their social organizations, with their family members, The administration said that they have a care team to support seniors residing on the mainland. I hope that they can think about how they can improve the services. Some family members of seniors residing on the mainland are worried about how they can keep their relationship. That's my first point. When I visited the care homes on the mainland, I wondered if we can offer banking and legal services to the seniors residing on the mainland. Third, how do we assess the effectiveness of the scheme? Apart from its popularity, apart from how many seniors residing in the care homes on the mainland under the scheme, will you use the health conditions, satisfactory level, or the frequency of contact with the family members as the criteria to assess the success of the scheme? I see that the SWD has a web page on the Guangdong scheme. You have links to PDF on the care homes, and you have videos for each and every care homes on Guangdong. Will you create a website to offer information so that family members of the seniors don't have to click on every video clips or open the PDFs individually? Thank you. I will ask Ms. Yan to elaborate. Thank you for your suggestion. You can browse all the information on our webpage. Well, as to whether we will create a dedicated website for the Guangdong scheme, we'll look into it. As mentioned, we have a team to provide care services to seniors residing on the mainland. In early 2025, we will engage a company and agent to help seniors adapt to the lives on the mainland. On helping seniors keeping in touch with their family members in Hong Kong, we will assist them. We now try to collect feedback from seniors residing on the mainland. We meet with them and we ask them to fill out some forms for us. Next, Mr. Chao Chiu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. This term of the government and the Legislative Council work very hard on promoting cross-boundary elderly services. I have visited Fujian, Guangdong, Guangzhou care homes. I've talked to seniors residing on the mainland. They are concerned about medical services. An elderly person told me that they would stay in the mainland as long as they can work, or as long as they can walk and take care of themselves. But as their conditions deteriorate, they may return to Hong Kong. On the pilot scheme to support CSSA recipients residing on the mainland, will you take out medical insurance for them on the mainland? Second, apart from medical services, seniors are also concerned about how their family members can visit them. With 11 care homes under the Guangdong scheme, I see that only one is in Shenzhen. There's none in Zhuhai. Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Zhongshan are the closest to Hong Kong, but I don't see many care homes in these three cities. From the perspective of visit, will you increase more care homes in the cities that are closer to Hong Kong? Thank you. Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. On the pilot scheme for elderly CSSA recipients to reside in Guangdong, we shoulder part of their medical services because they can take care of themselves, basically. They can take out local basic medical insurance policies. They can also take out top-up services. But as they are not frail elders, we shoulder their medical expenses. We never say never. Depending on the outcome of the pilot scheme, we'll look into whether we will make any adjustment. As for the selection of care homes and their locations, as I mentioned, as we all know, Zhuhai is very close to Hong Kong, but a lot of Macau residents also take out medical insurance policies. There, they only charge 90 yuan. The care homes or the cities will only participate in the scheme as long as there is a profit to make. We will not try to force any care homes in any cities to participate in our scheme, but we encourage them to do so. Any other business? This is the last meeting of the panel in 2024. I thank the administration and members for their support in 2024. There will be no other business. Meeting adjourned.